Welcome, everyone, to another riveting conversation on the Daily Jawn stage. I'm honored and excited to be in conversation with David Gaines. Come on up here, let's go. Woo! Yes.
Thank you for having me.
David Gaines is a writer, filmmaker, and actor born and raised in Philadelphia. His work examines blackness, masculinity, Christianity, and mental health through an intersectional lens and has been featured in the National Black Arts Festival, Button Poetry, Right About Now, Vice Media, and many others. He's an award-winning, nationally touring poetry performer, a fellow of the Watering Hole and BlackStar Filmmaker Lab, and a poet laureate of Pennsylvania's Montgomery County. When not writing, performing, or orchestrating films, you can find Dave teaching poetry to Philly youth, playing narrative-centric video games, or spending quality time with nature. Got to know all about you.
Thank you for that lovely introduction.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. A little tired. My brain isn't fully awake, but I'm excited to be here.
You're going to be featuring your first short film here at BlackStar. It's
Yep.
going to be tomorrow at 2:30 at the Suzanne Roberts Theater, Freedom to Fall Apart.
Yep.
I had the pleasure of watching this late last night,
You did?
and I loved it. I went to bed smiling, and I woke up super excited to talk to you.
Thank you.
So good work by you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Where was the Freedom to Fall Apart filmed?
It was filmed in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, which is maybe about 20 to 30 minutes outside of Philly. We really wanted to shoot it in Philly, but it just didn't work out with time, the realities of budget. But fortunately, we found a spot that's called Castle Hill, because we knew we wanted to shoot in like a Tudor style, like castle, something really grand and illustrious looking. And so in the 11th hour, we found the perfect spot that would allow us to shoot there all 4 days that we wanted to be there. So yeah, we shot there, one location, in and out.
It was a great setting, really, really good. What was it like to create comedy that is critical of black masculinity?
What was it like to create comedy that was critical of black masculinity? Easy. Easy, honestly. A little too easy. I was like, I'm a writer, I'm a poet, so a lot of my work already deals with a lot about masculinity and blackness. So I'm already really conscious of it, but I think it was so easy to me because so much of it is already absurd and funny when you really think about it. And so my job was really to identify what I thought was so funny about it and escalate that to 1,000. That was more not even difficult part, that was the fun part. But when they say write what you know, that's what I come from. That's what I observe in so many people around me. So it was just easy to kind of focus in on and bring it to life. Yeah.
This is your first time directing as well?
Yes, first time, yeah.
I know a lot of people that were on set with you, and they had wonderful things to say about you. What did you learn about yourself in that role?
I learned so much. A friend of mine whose name is escaping me, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, who said that we don't make films, like films make us. And I think that was very true in the making of this film. I feel like I learned a lot about my own communication styles, maybe how I handle conflict, and having to have uncomfortable conversations, and maybe a bit of my own people-pleasingness, where it's like, as a director, you just can't. There's times where you just cannot please everyone, and you're gonna have to say things that may hurt feelings, but sometimes feelings need to be hurt sometimes. So I learned that. I also learned what it was like to work as a part of a team on a creative project. Poetry can be such an independent, isolating occupation, but film is like constantly talking to, especially doing it within the filmmaker lab, right? So I'm here with cohorts and BlackStar, and we're getting notes, and there's guest directors, and you're constantly hearing from people and working with people and having to explain your ideas and share your ideas, which you really have to know your ideas well in order to communicate them effectively to your team. So I just learned a lot about my own creative approach and what it takes for me to be a leader, and what that means, being a leader, whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. What was your favorite part about being on the set?
My favorite part about being on set, there is a scene. I don't want to spoil anything, but everyone who I've showed the film to says it's their favorite scene. I'll say it features Rashid Zakat, who's one of our. He's in the crowd right now.
Rashid's here.
Rashid's scene was so fun to shoot. It came after we shot probably the most difficult scene to shoot because it was the longest and also it involved a very young actor. And so that was really difficult. Our production day got delayed a little bit, like we were short on time. And so shooting that scene, though, it breathed life into that day, our first day, which is so important for setting the pace of the production and setting the tone and the energy for the room, especially making a comedy. So it was just really funny. Like he executed, all the actors executed in the scene, and I for the first time I saw like the crew was laughing, and I was like, ooh, like that's it. And we needed it. I just knew as a director, like we needed that moment after coming from such a hard space, and that like really set the tone for the entire production. So shout out to Rashid, shout out to all the actors in that scene and our crew.
Did you do all the casting?
Yeah. I mean, we worked with a casting agent, but Rashid did not come through the casting agent, definitely. And also another one of our actors, Ozzy Jones, also came recommended by BlackStar. So Rashid and Ozzy came through BlackStar.
They were incredible.
Absolutely.
When I meet them and see them, I can't wait to tell them about themselves because they were really, really great. It was wonderful. What's bringing you joy lately?
What's bringing me joy? Bringing me joy. Being in nature more. I've been hiking more, which is really nice. But difficult because I don't like bugs. I don't like, you know what I mean? They don't like respect your personal space. I don't like that. Yeah, is that the Philly thing?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know that. But yeah, being in nature more has been really helpful. And honestly, just being in general has been bringing me a lot of joy. Like really untying my value and my like how I treat myself to what I do, and like what I'm able, like my productivity in the day. Like I'll have some really unproductive days, and still be so happy, now, which is new for me, and like really progressive for me. So that's been bringing me joy. I think really is just like letting myself show up however I am, on any given day and respecting and loving that. And yeah.
Do you have a artist practice? You're a writer, so do you have like a regimen at 5 a.m. I'm gonna get up, drink my coffee, write a couple of things?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I should, because discipline is important for any like practice. And you know what? That's not true. I go in waves. So I'll go through really like regimented.
Okay.
Actually, the process of even making the script for The Freedom to Fall Apart was kind of like that. It was just like, all right, I'm gonna wake up. I usually like free write a bunch of stuff just to get things going, and then at some point, just write something a day. That was my goal. Was just like write something. It could be anything. Same thing with reading. Just read something. It could be Twitter if that's what it is. But do something. But that only lasts for like so long. And then sometimes I think a part of my artistic practice is living as a writer. That's a big part of it, is having experiences and like living your life. So you have things to write about. So you have things to share. And so I go through waves of like, I guess creating, making, saying, and then just like listening and like being still and like present.
I've asked all of the filmmakers up here about perfection and their relationship with this high standard we set for ourselves and this idea of excellence and our relationship with our own tastes and what we make in relationship with that. What's this journey been like for you?
That is a loaded question.
Let's go.
I mean, it's literally what my film is about. I think this idea of excellence, Black excellence specifically, and it was kind of meta creating it, a film about this, because I was doing it as I was making it, in the sense that, you know, I'm a perfectionist, but not in like the quirky way, like, ooh, I'm a perfectionist. I try really hard. No, like it ruins my life. Like it's a problem. And that combined with like I have diagnosed OCD as well, which is something I got diagnosed maybe a couple years ago. And something I've been really aware of is the little holes of focus I fall into. And this filmmaking process, directing process has been a practice in like really loving myself and being aware of when I'm triggered and when I'm like fixating on a detail that may not need my attention right now. Because there's so many opportunities to do that as a director. Everything can be, you know, fiddled with and, you know, perfected or whatever. But there's no such thing as perfection. And that's a liberating and also sometimes frustrating thing for me because I want to make quality stuff. So in the process of making the film, it was a lot of, you know, the film deals with our main character who has depression and is essentially burnt out from pushing himself so hard. And in the process of this film, I mean, that happened with me too. Because when I first, the initial script that I submitted was just like an anthology of 4 comedy sketches. And submitted that. You know, BlackStar lovingly and graciously accepted that. And the first day of the fellowship, me and my amazing cohorts, Zardoz, Simone, Stephanie, Aaron, Samia, Eliza, we all, with BlackStar, read our scripts, like with guest directors and writers. And after that day, I realized that this script isn't what I wanted to make. So over the next couple months, I like completely rewrote my script. And like the folks in the fellowship know, like the state it's in now is not where it started. And that came at honestly a big cost of my mental health, to be honest. Like I didn't do that in the healthiest way, I realized. And so I became the protagonist of my film in a way. And my mentor, Alex Ashe, who BlackStar linked me with, like pointed that out to me and was like, yo, it seems like you're like writing about yourself and what you're doing right now. So when I identified that, I was able to step back and be like, okay, I can't make a film about self-care, about self-acceptance if I'm not doing that myself, if I'm not living that myself. It just won't come through. And so I had to really check myself. And from that point forward, my process became so much more fun. Of course, I still have my, like, I want things to be perfect. And fortunately, like, I have a great crew who are willing to, like, deal with my first-time director, like, anxieties. But yeah, I mean, that whole perfection struggle is real. It's still real. I think even when I'm sitting in the theater watching our film, it's still gonna be like, oh, I wish I did that. And But you know, I don't think all of that is bad. I think I want to make a quality product. I think we deserve, especially like Black audiences deserve, you know, audiences of color deserve their stories to be told in ways that they feel like proud of and excited about to share. And I want to create things that people are excited about. So I'm still working my way through it. I'm definitely not over it. I think it's something I'll probably deal with my entire life. But I'm much better with it now than I was at the beginning of the fellowship, really, I think.
I love that arc for you.
Thank you.
How did you choose to situate the story inside of a space like the Black Freemasons?
Ooh, so that was part of the rewrite I was saying that I did, was I took the 4 sketches, sketch comedy, and like, on the advice of one of the people in the fellowship, brought them into one world. And so really, I was trying to find what world all those sketches lived in. And I really want to tell you what the sketches are, but I also don't want to spoil anything because they are still present in the film. But I'd say really listening to the text was really helpful. Like even when I was going through all my imposter syndrome, like first time director stuff, I knew I had something in this script like BlackStar liked, and sometimes that was all I had was like someone believed in me enough to accept me into this. So there's something here, even though I don't trust myself, like I trust the people who trusted me enough. And I really sat down. I was like, okay, what was it, right? What are the things that I felt like were the strongest? And the themes that kept coming up were things like, obviously, masculinity was a big one. Blackness, specifically like the pigeonholing and the compartmentalization of these identities. So like, you have to be black a specific kind of way. You have to be masculine in a specific kind of way. Or even like capitalism was also really present as well for me. And this idea of, again, excellence. What is excellence? Who does black excellence discard? What does black excellence cost? It was all there already. It just was like buried under, all the other stuff, all the bits and the jokes that are really just defense mechanisms for the truth, And so, yeah, that process was like refining. And eventually, I put this story in so many different places. Like my producer, Eliza Turner, will tell you, at one point, the story was in a restaurant. At one point, it was in a school. At one point, and one of my personal favorites, it was in a bus terminal, like a Greyhound station. And all of these places came with their own, like, it warped the story, but also came with their own realities for production, which is why I think God bless my producer, because it was like, okay, first we're here, and then actually like next week it'd be like, all right, now we're over here, and like you can't find locations if you don't know where the story is. So it really was like working with her, I think, was really beneficial in terms of her giving me the space to really figure out the vision, nail down where do these stories live in which they're able to sing, And so when it came to the fraternal order thing, I was doing a bunch of research, and I found the specific order that inspired the story is called the Improved and Benevolent Order of Elks. And I was researching, it's a black fraternal order. And I was researching them, and in their history, I found that they were based on, they're essentially an offshoot of a white fraternal order called the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks. But the founders of the black fraternal order weren't accepted. And so what they did was they took their rule book, like their code book, and copyrighted it because it wasn't copyrighted, and put the name Improved in the front of their name and just made their own thing for like black folk, but made it black. And so when I learned that, I was like, okay, here we have two black men who are adopting a white power structure and attempting to repurpose it for the liberation of black people. And like, that was just a fascinating concept to me. It inspired me greatly, and I was like, okay, I want to explore that. I don't know the answer of whether should we be doing that? Is that the road to liberation? But I want to create something that enters that conversation, and that felt like the best way to do it. So long story long, listening to the text, doing research and learning, and really thinking about where does this text exist already in the world, and how can I be in conversation with that? Yeah.
You did a wonderful job of what was very overt and what was subtle. You did that masterfully. And I'm just wondering, how has your poetry helped develop your screenwriting or affect your screenwriting?
I love that question because it's actually something I've been thinking about a lot lately because I'm of the opinion, and I'm biased, but that poetry is, and not written poetry, but just poetry, is like the base form of all art.
Okay.
I think it's like the motherland, it's Africa, it is what all things art are rooted in, because in my opinion, poetry it's about relationship. It's about connection between images, ideas, thoughts. It's poetry, relationship. And so, cinematography, music, writing, screenwriting, like all these forms of expression are just different languages of relationship, like connecting images to feelings or sonics to, you know, whatever. Like it, I think poetry really is the bottom of that. And so, in terms of writing the script, I think one, it made me not be able to make something simple. I think poets, to our own detriment, honestly, are always like trying to be deep and profound and say something meaningful. So I think that was a big thing, but also I think it just allowed me to really look at the project as a poem of all these different languages, right? And speak like when I'm speaking to our cinematographer, Bradley Credit, amazing. It's like, okay, when I'm communicating these ideas, it's like I am using the language of relationship and the language of, okay, this is the feeling I want to evoke, and this is how I think these images can, you know, or these like layers can like get us there. Essentially, and I think we applied that to everything, even like production, right? Like thinking about how all these elements are in conversation with each other, right? Because we're experiencing them all at the same time. And that's poetry, you know? Like that is relationship and harmony. And I heard someone describe it as like jazz, you know, which I think is really true, especially the improvised nature of a lot of it. Yeah, poetry. I think poetry really set me up more than I realized to make a film that has these layers. My biggest thing, I like art that like you can live with, that you can watch again and again and again and get different stuff. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, I think you have to be really intentional about the relationship of things and the layers and like all those ideas. So I'm hoping they're present. I'm really glad to hear that they resonated with you. That makes me really happy. And yeah, love poetry. And I think poetry, the reason I compare it to the motherland is like it's so disrespected. It's so like under-recognized and underrated. But you need us. You need poets. You may not like us, but you need us, you know?
Put some respect on it. I hear. Final question. What is a work you wish you made?
A work I wish I made. A work I wish I made. Honestly, I wish I made Atlanta. I wish I made Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's so.
I love that.
It's so good, and honestly, this film, like, even sometimes.
And I felt.
It's
yes, I definitely
big
felt
influence.
that. Yes,
it's like,
absolutely.
It's like if Atlanta wasn't Philly. Like
Yeah.
that's what I was kind of going for a little bit, and obviously big inspiration. You know, Donald Glover and like a lot of the writers on those episodes really inspired me, and I just think that concept of a show where it's absurd, right? It really highlights the absurdity of being black in America, where it just feels like random stuff just happens to you. Like I remember I was in the SEPTA station on Suburban, and I was just sitting there minding my black business, and I looked over and there was a white woman across from me, and I just looked over at her and she was like, and I was like, and she was like, I don't want any problems, and I was like, you know, but it doesn't make sense. It's random. It's chaotic. And I think Atlanta nailed that. And that was sort of the vibe and tone I was trying to strike in my film. It was like, yeah, it is absurd. It just feels like you're just trying to live your life and things are happening that don't really make sense all the time. So Atlanta is my answer.
I think you're on your way, because I definitely felt Atlanta and watching that.
Wow.
So you're on
Thank
your
you.
way.
Thank you.
David, thank you for just showing up. Thank you for being brave and vulnerable in a lot of ways. And I'm so excited to see what more you have ahead of you. And everybody, if you have not seen this film, make sure you go check it out, 2:30 on Saturday
Yes.
at the
Suzanne Roberts Theater. And also, I want to shout out to my other fellow directors in the BlackStar Filmmaker Lab, like Zardoz, like Simone Holland, who are premiering at 8 p.m. in Suzanne Roberts Theater that same day. You know, so come to ours. You know, get
Gang,
warmed up,
gang.
and then come
Yeah.
for the closer at 8 for sure.
Wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for having me.